anyway. Now we're gonna get fancy then?
That's what's
That's
up.
not story.
Get
I'm not in
this.
that sense.
Let's keep it church rated. Annie, awesome. What else?
Rom-com Overboard, the remake.
I don't know.
Oh, it was originally done with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, and then they just remade it a couple of years ago.
All right, what's like the
Yeah.
synopsis?
It's basically kind of what she said, only with two adults, not a daughter and Daddy Warbucks. It's two adults.
Cannot hear Annie the same. So distracted.
That's a different one, it's Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, synopsis?
Well, she's, I don't know what they would actually call her, she's,
Oh, Brooklyn.
This is getting better.
there you go. Well, anyway, she ends up, yes, this man just ripped her off her feet and there they go. I wish that could happen to me.
Oh, like Forrest Gump, right?
Oh, there you go, yeah.
Oh,
Kind of
yeah.
quirky little guy.
That's me, hello. I'm on that rat.
Any others?
Oh, Cayman Islands, South Pacific.
Right, that's kind of a theme, right? Like, there's a lot of like, down your luck, rooting for the underdog, end up better than where they started. We have a lot of riches to rags stories. It's
What's
not
that?
as appealing in plot.
Trading places.
Yeah, I was gonna say Eddie Murphy's Trading Places.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those two guys.
It's depending on from what perspective, what part are you trading into?
I love that story.
I know, it's like a little bit too real.
Or a true story, the Bernie Madoff story. That was truly riches to rags.
Can you quick
Okay.
synopsis? I don't know.
Oh, he was Ponzi
Ponzi
scheme,
scheme.
a big investor, lost millions for millions, thousands of people lost their life savings and was finally busted. And is he still alive?
Yeah,
He's
he's
still
in
he's
jail.
in jail,
He's still in
but
jail.
he's still alive.
It's his
And his
wife who runs the
sons, one of
race.
the sons that was involved in it, but apparently didn't know what was going on, but was still worked for him. One of them killed himself, and one of them died from cancer.
Oh, wow.
And his wife is still living somewhere very modestly in Florida, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, nasty story, bad story.
In a different sort of way, right? That's kind of like the Job story, right? It's not as appealing a plot to engage. This idea of Job, right, who I think this book is one of the most difficult to engage theologically, faithfully, scripturally. So today's reading that Eric read to us, we only get to hear like a tiny sliver of the story of Job. And right from the beginning, right, we learn that Job is honest and upright, not a Ponzi schemer. He's a man who revered God and he turned away from evil. And while we don't hear about it in the reading today, Job was a man of means. He had a wife, he had lots of children, he had a lot of agricultural resources, he had livestock. All the stats about him point toward him being a really great guy who did not deserve the level of suffering that came next. The writer of this text gives us the privilege of witnessing an odd conversation between God and Satan. And we get to hear about this one random day when the heavenly beings were hanging out and God and Satan comes along to crash this party. And God asks him, where have you been? Satan's like, well, here and there, just kind of roaming around the world. And we infer that this Satan kind of roaming around is like up to no good, basically. And so God says back to him, have you noticed Job, my faithful one? There's no one on earth like him. He's unlike anyone else in the world, honest and upright, reveres God and turns away from evil. His integrity is intact, even though you incited me to ruin him. And so Satan essentially tells God that he could probably sway Job from his faithfulness toward God. And God, who's very confident in Job's faith, takes on this challenge as long as Satan promised to not take Job's life. Now, I don't know about you, but this whole exchange feels super awkward and off to me. It almost seems like a scene from like a really badly done teeny bopper movie where, maybe two of the teens are engaging in a bet about, a makeover or asking someone to prom or something like this. And for lack of a better way to put it, this feels like a pissing contest. God and Satan are wagering over the life and personhood of innocent Job, who's just minding his own business, being as good a person as he knows how. So after that awkward exchange, Satan leaves God and gets straight to it, inflicting Job with painful boils from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Poor Job ends up taking broken pottery to scrape his skin as he sits grieving on some ashes. And for those who know the story, right, this is only the beginning of his troubles. Satan pushes and pushes Job to the very edge of sanity. He loses all of his livestock, all of his children die, his friends mock him, and even his wife impatiently tells him to curse God and just die. While his friends blame Job for his own misfortunes, certain that he must have done something to bring about this level of suffering. His wife is one example of how people point their fingers at God, accusing God of abandoning Job and allowing these horrible things to happen to him. And we don't have to go to the movies to experience the bizarreness of our modern, real-life versions of riches to rags types of stories. We just step right outside of our own communities to see and feel the kind of suffering all around us. We spend time and heart, energy trying to make sense of the struggles and the violence. We need something to blame for the haphazard and senseless suffering around us. And so we point our fingers at politicians who are more concerned with power, popularity, and press instead of their practices and policies. We point our fingers at mental illnesses or addictions or other life circumstances that could literally be treated and addressed. We point our fingers at Mother Nature as she responds angrily to the ways in which humanity mistreats her. We even point our fingers at God in accusation and even sometimes in acceptance. In an effort to make sense of senseless things that happen to us and others, it definitely is very tempting to dig around for an explanation to help us swallow reality. In light of recent events in the world, in the highest offices of this land, and even in this state, we are certainly doing a lot of finger pointing and blaming and looking all over the place for our explanations for all the ridiculous violence and injustice. I know this might be unpopular, but I believe that our efforts to find out why actually distract us from dealing directly with the what. We spend our energies trying to explain or justify the issues without any real and sustaining effort to heal the source, and it leaves us largely neglecting the illness itself. I think that's what Jesus is about, right? When God broke into our world as a tiny, helpless baby to a young, broken, unwed couple, God didn't come in here to eradicate the pain. God didn't take away the suffering or the hurt. God didn't cause it also, I feel like I should add. But instead, God came in to experience the suffering with us, to be a part of the illness so as to bring about healing, with or without a cure. In the words of Job, if we accept happiness from God, we should also accept adversity. There's no easy way to process the big question of theodicy, that is, why bad things happen to good people. Even though it's presented in such an awkward way in the book of Job, what we do know is that God, through Christ, shares in the suffering with us. We don't have to curse God, but even if we did, God can handle it. We don't have to chase after the wise, But even if we did, God is near. We don't need to blame and punish and accuse and continue to hurt each other, because that's really hurting ourselves, hurting God even. I can't end this sermon with any false promises that suffering will end. Instead, I can send us off with a reminder that Jesus came into a suffering world and even directly experienced suffering with us. And so on this World Communion Sunday, I find it so appropriate that we can share in this ordinary and sacred meal with people in every time and in every place. I find it quite empowering to join together with the whole body of Christ, reminded on this special Sunday that when any part of the body hurts, we all hurt. We're not alone in this messy and beautiful and horrible and comforting and violent and hope-filled world. God is with us in all of it, the good, the bad, and the everything's in between. Amen.
Amen.